Hello everyone, Ceri the Crafter here, that's C-E-R-I the Crafter, and I'm here with a little bonus video. Probably only about 10 minutes, 15 if I get a bit gossipy. As you know, I do art journaling. I've got about 15 art journals on the go, which we've had discussions about that addiction in the past. Although I always promised you that when I finish an art journal, I will show it to you. And I've finished one at last. I would say you've seen little bits of this throughout my life with this art journal. I will say this was started at the beginning of 2022, but I jump around between art journals. So here it is. Now, when you ask me what art journal this is originally a Diane Reevely Dilutions art journal. Now, here is a smaller version of it. I mean, it will, as you can see the dimension of this is basically just a scaled down version. It comes with the book block in it and the pocket. I just happen to have the ruler stored in there with an elastic closure. Now, I like using these journals. However, my bug is that when I get part of the way through there, usually the spine splits, but I love the paper. I've even tried taking several pages out and then working the, for some reason the spine always gives out to me. So what I did is I cut off the piece that folded over and I kept the back in place, and then I re-glued the spine to some support fabric, and then I put a spine down it. So I still have the journal, I just don't have the bit that flaps over, but that doesn't bother me. So as you can see, I do play around sticking stuff onto my journal covers. Is this cover finished? Probably not. I'll probably play around and put the date on it or something like that. But we're going to do a bit of a flip through because, as I said, I always promised you I'll do a flip through. Now this to me was kind of the beginning of my journey with a large art journal. Prior to that, my art journals were this size. In fact, this is probably one of my first art journals. So I chose to work a little bit bigger in this one. And I enjoyed it. And this is the size I now use on a regular basis. So let's get on with it, shall we? So, as I said, some of you might have seen some of these before. Shall I zoom in a bit? Let's see if I can zoom in. There you go, that's probably better for you. You've probably seen bits of this as I flip through, but it's eventually now completely finished. So these were a stencil. I have no idea which company it was. I want to say it's a Nautilus stencil. I wish I'd have designed it, and I don't think I've even got this stencil anymore. I think it got damaged along the way. So basically, this was me just starting to play, starting to experiment, but I like this. And then I finished it off with my little stamped fish that I made the other day. So that ended that one. I have a habit that if I've finished a page, I sign it. And then I've got a personal rule that once it's signed, I can't go back and touch it again, because I could fiddle and fiddle and fiddle until the thing falls to pieces. Next one, playing with stencils yet again. I think these were pages out of an old book, which was about illuminated letters. I think this, I can't remember where that stencil came from. I think this is a Tim Holtz. And then just basically mark making and stuff like that from me. This one was made with, I made a background just directly into the journal, and then these were bits of papers that I cut up and stuck down, and then I used a piece of card with paint around it and put the gold on there. And I was planning to do more work on this, but when I got to see this and I let it sit overnight, I came in the next morning and went, it's done. And that's all I can say is it's done. So, and I quite like it. There's something about this. I have learned that it's very important to have empty space, because the empty space makes you focus on the space or something in it. So as all art journals are, they're a journey. Now, I think you've definitely seen this one. This was modelling paste. I will say that was handmade modelling paste, because I don't think I had any modelling paste back in 2022. Let's see, what is this? I want to say this must be tissue paper in the background. These are obviously words I've cut from a magazine. I'll say those might be washi. That looks like washi tape. It is washi tape. And just basically, I will say this might be acrylic inks. Now, I don't use acrylic inks very often. It's probably my controlling nature. I don't like the fact that I can't control them. I was combining magazine images with stencils and tissue at this point. And you'll note that I started being interested in like asemic writing at this point, and you'll see that develop as I go through. This was a stenciled piece with modelling paste again, and I have learned that I'm not ever going to put modelling paste into my art journals again, and you will see why in a moment or two. But so yes, that was good, and I think I painted over the top of that with watercolour, I think I did. So that was that one. This one, I love this, and I think it's the colours. It just shouts tropical to me. Why did I do this one? Why did I do this one? I think I was just playing around with stencils, and this was a stencil a friend of mine had made, and I wanted to play with it. This was a stencil I already had for home decor, and this just developed. When the muse strikes me, if I want to say that, I sometimes just grab something and impulse throw something down. I mean, I may have made this background and not come back and finished it for a year. And that's what I do, is I make lots of backgrounds, and then periodically I'll flip through an art journal and a background will speak to me or inspire me to do something, or a colour combination will spark me off in some way. So I do jump around. This is me just trying to find what feels best. Now this for me was a page of discovery, right? There's a magazine image there of someone climbing a rock face. Now, I've got used to the fact now that I like to put imagery in with other stuff, and a lot of the time it's either a magazine piece, or it's based on a magazine piece, or it's a magazine piece I paint over the top of. This was where I discovered my love for this sort of color combination. This teal and orange and pink, this sort of really appealed, and I was playing with it down here again. And as you've heard me say, I also seem to stick red into things, but this just really worked for me, and I loved it. So it doesn't need to mean anything to anyone except me, and that's what I love about it. Oops, skipped ahead too many. This was me just trying to play with a theme. Now, I played with dressmaking, but I only had that piece of Stamperia rice paper. I found this. Where did I find this? That might have been in a sewing book. I will say this was tissue paper, gift wrap tissue paper, and then I came in and painted the gold over the top of that. The background is the background. I will say this might be Tim Holtz collage paper. And then the background, I was trying to be more feminine in this one, and that doesn't mean I want to be a girl. It just means that I was trying to give the tone of light. I was using pink basically, and I don't use pink. So whenever I don't do something, I try to do it to see why I don't do it, or see whether it works and I'm just avoiding it. So that's why the pink and the teal, or the pink and turquoise is there. And I really love this, because if you take that away, this page for me doesn't work. But that actually just brought everything together, because it focused it all on that. Okay, this is probably one of my favorites. Now, this is all, not all, majority of this is Stamperia rice paper. Definitely the whalers from it. So are these little pieces here. I do know I can see some Tim Holtz decoupage tissue there. These are, I want to say these are stickers onto book page. What's that there? There's lots of different things in here, but the main focal point is pretty much the tissue paper from Stamperia. And I love this, and I'm not one for making statements. I like to put words into things, but this one, I wanted to save the world, and I wanted to start with the oceans. And I love this. I wish this was actually a framed piece, because I would hang this on my wall. I just love this one. Right, this was the very first time I started trying to draw faces. Now, I've been fascinated by faces for a very long time. There's an artist out there on the internet called Karen Campbell, and I do watch her videos, not as often as I probably would like to, but I've seen her. She has lots of different, well, she's got hundreds of videos out there about doing faces and guys' faces, girls' faces, doing things in a simple way, trying to support the community, very much teaching how to do facial structures. And it's always fascinated me, and I want to do that. So I drew this face, and I did all the hair, got a bit carried away with the hair. I liked that. This, however, was a mistake. I used, what is this? I think this is light and fluffy texture paste, or it's a Tim Holtz texture paste. So I can't remember exactly, but those are the only two I had at that time. And it caused me a huge problem, because everything was done and finished, and I shut the book. The next time I came in, this ripped all of this out of here, and the face stuck and pulled. So I spent a long time trying to repair this. Now, this is actually not finished, because I in the end I lost heart and didn't finish it. Where I've done all of the lines on here, I was going to do the lines on the black light leaves. I was going to do them in a white gel pen. I came in and I repaired this to the best of my ability. I mean, I know where the damage is, but hopefully you can't see it. And then I treated it with wax, this is the wax I normally use on my journal pages now. And I put it on there and then buffed it, and it hasn't stuck since, but in my mind it was ruined. But the lesson I learned was I can draw faces, and it sparked a complete new interest. And as you'll see, I did more and more faces throughout, and eventually I've started a journal that's this size, that's purely faces. It's men's faces, women's faces. I'm thinking I want to put animal faces in there as well, because there's a lot of pages in one of these journals. So at some point in the future, you may see that journal. But yes, yeah, but that was my first attempt at drawing a face. It took some doing. I can't say that wasn't without stress, and trying to work out the shading was a whole nother, we won't even talk about that. Okay, this was probably only done about 3 weeks ago, to be honest with you. And although this means nothing to anyone else, what it means to me is I did this when I took a couple of weeks off to be with Biscuit, my yellow lab. He was going through some tough times, and he was struggling with cancer and other things, and I wanted to spend some time with him instead of me being up in my studio all the time and him downstairs in the living room. I took my art journal downstairs, and I spent 2 weeks just being with him and playing with him and just spending quality time so I could build some more memories. And this is what came out of me when I was dealing with that. And unfortunately, I had to put Biscuit down because there were further complications, and it got to the point that I couldn't look at my boy anymore and see him struggle. So, yeah, hardest decision I think I've made in a very, very, very long time. However, this is what the manifestation of my emotions at that time were. And the memory with it is not great. But I love that this happened, because it's made me find something in me, and it's making my art go to a different place than where it normally is. So this will forever be Biscuit spread. But let's move on, shall we? So right now, this one I was playing around with. I like to have an idea or a concept or a message within everything. And I was dealing with how camouflage is with nature. So of course we've got the creatures here who are camouflaged, and we've got the little girl on the pumpkin who's not. So if I do that, we look at camouflage, we do that, and it was the message I was trying to get across is the natural world and nature are right, but we don't belong because we don't have built-in camouflage anywhere. I don't think there's one place in which the human body, in no matter what color, shape or form, is camouflaged naturally. And it was the difference between nature and humankind. So I don't know, maybe a bit deep for some people, but I enjoyed the link and I enjoyed doing this. I mean, this might have been a magazine or a picture from a book. And this, I'd say, was from a magazine. And then this was all stenciled in to blend. This must have been, I can't say it was a crocodile. It must have been something anyway with a lizard background. And I just worked that pattern out. And then I found this girl who's obviously prey. She's going to be eaten for dinner. So this whole thing was an exploration of the color combination of this card, because this was a journal card I made completely separately. It was never meant to be in the journal, but I liked this color so much I wanted to explore it further. So what I did is I made this the focal point and then made the page to match it. And here we go again. I'm playing with this asemic writing thing again. Now this is a good example. See, the pages tend to break apart. I've learned to embrace it. And what I've started doing now is as soon as I've finished a piece, I always photograph it, because over time the damage may happen, but at least I've then got a picture that's unmarred. So yes, this was just an exploration of working with the colour purple and what goes with it, with texture. There's dried grasses in this. And this is where this sort of mosaic thing started to raise its head. You'll see this again, and if you did... What did I do? Hashtag Mixed Media March 25 this year. And actually, I think I was, say, in Geli post. I can't remember what it's called. Hashtag Geli, Gely, postcard play. Last year, I also did this on, I think, on a card front or a postcard front. And basically what I do is I make a panel of art and then I cut it up and then explode it, so that there's gaps between them. I don't know, it just really appeals to me. It lays really well with my OCD, should we say. This one, just me playing with perspective, like smart. This was just fun. It was just fun. I mean, that's all I can say. It was just fun and I like it. It made me smile. It kept me occupied for a little while. A bit of mindful downplay. Right, this was the second face I drew. And you can see that I'm beginning to relax a bit. This one I waxed, and as you can see, it didn't get damaged. The hair was beginning to annoy me because I got so fixated that I've now changed the way I do hair. But this is an interesting process. But I was getting the eyes, lips, and the nose right at this point. And this was just, I like it. She's lovely. I do love her. I do wish I hadn't done her in this journal. I wish I'd done her in another. Right, now here's another development of that exploded square. This was a napkin image glued to a piece of card, then cut into 1-inch squares. It's about a 1-inch square, and then stuck down. And this is, again, I've used this time and time again. It's a process I really do enjoy, although I miscalculated and cut this wrong. So as you can see, it doesn't line up here. That's why the butterfly's there, to distract you from the fact that I messed up. Again, modelling paste on here, but for some reason, it didn't tear up the image opposite. So I haven't quite figured out why it did on the first images, but not on this image. Mind you, I did put inks over the top of this, which absorbed into it. I want to say that's Tim Holtz decoupage paper. That's washi, that's book page that I just cut. Yeah, I like that. That's nice. It was brighter. It's gone a bit duller over time. Again, playing with magazine images and scale, and again, these are just, My journal is where I escape, basically. I escape and I play. I've now sort of got two different types of journals on the go. My older journals are basically making pieces of art in an art journal. My newer journals are basically experimental playgrounds where it's safe to do whatever I want. So there's things are going in different directions, but I do like this. I love stuff that makes you look into it, and that's the sort of art I like viewing. I look into it and go, why is there a butterfly there? Why is that cross stitch? Why? I like looking into things. Okay, again, another face. I decided not to do a face on one here. This was like a Celtic goddess. I had a real fun time here, just playing around. This was generated, the idea by, these are a stencil by PM Artist Studio. I will say it might be Celtic knot or Celtic mandala or something like that. And this idea sparked this image. So I drew her. I will say I was inspired by a magazine image of this woman's face, and I drew this woman's face and then added there. As you can tell, I started working differently with the hair. I struggle with hair, probably because I haven't got any and haven't had any for a very long time. But this was fun. I like this. And I'm again getting to that. The shading is what I struggle with. I really struggle with shading, and I really struggle with noses. Noses, I have no idea. I'm getting there, but it's tough. Right, now this one is really thick, and it had to be really thick because I glued 2 pages together. I glued 2 pages there, and I will show you why in a minute or two. Right, this was part of a project that I did with my best friend Gail Augustinelli. We did a 5-item swap. So basically I sent Gail 5 items and she sent me 5 items, and we had to make something with it. So I made this as a celebration of our friendship. This was supposed to be Gail as a little girl. I want to say off the top of my head, Gail probably sent me these, definitely some of the papers. I think she sent me the film strip. She might have sent me that frame. I can't 100% remember, to be honest. Oh, actually, this paper here, the background paper, it was almost like it was burnt. It was really dramatic, and I think it was really just intense inks or coffee dye. But yeah, so there's a whole video, I believe, on this one. And the reason I had to double page these is because I put a little postcard in here, and this was my reminder. It just explains to me what this whole thing was about. So there you go, January 2022 this was done. So, and that sits in there just as a reminder. So I think there was a video on this. I'm almost certain there was. If not, you can see it was, I loved this. It was fun. Then I sort of swung back to the bright and cheery stuff. This was a stencil I designed called Broken Bark, and it was my first ever stencil design for PM Artist Studio. This was a napkin. This was a stamp that I painted onto book page. This was the packaging from a stamp company called, I think it's called A Visual Image, based here in Wales. And this was a quote that was in an Edith Holden book. And I think I had every intention of putting more onto this page, but then I got to the point where I went, it's done. I think what it did was when I put that down and I saw that had black, I added black here and here and here, and all of a sudden it just felt done. So I just stopped. So again, my ode to autumn. This, I don't know, sometimes I have moments where I want to put a heartfelt message like, let's leave hate behind. So no finger pointing, no bullying, no fear. It's just the way, it's not a political statement. It's just how I was feeling on that day. And where were these from? I'll say these are probably from a magazine somewhere, because I certainly didn't draw those. Maybe they were part of an advertisement or something, and I fussy cut them out. Oh, okay. This was a double-page spread that was commemorating Queen Elizabeth II's death, and in my opinion, probably the last royal. I mean, I've lost my love for royalty, should I say, after the saga that's going on at the moment and has been for a while. And I'm not going to go there anymore. I'm not going to talk about royalty. I do think we have a brighter future coming towards us as far as royalty goes. But yeah, I miss the Queen. I did love what she did. The woman dedicated her entire life to her people. And yes, I know there were things that went behind the scenes, and I know it's a business and it's money generating. But you know, at the end of the day, I love the Queen. So, and I think this was napkins, and this was Hopeless Harlequin, one of my stencils. Now, this is a curious page. This was a project that I never finished. My intent was I created this background with strips of washi. And I was going to then put white gesso on it, so this was pushed into the background, and then create it into a project. But when I'd finished it, I loved it so much, there was nothing else needed. In fact, I wish I'd have done this as the cover, to be honest with you. But I loved this. I never found anything I wanted to do on top of it. I haven't signed this because this isn't my art. I just constructed it using other people's art. So, but it's one of these pages, it's just pretty to look at, and I love it. So let's see what's next. Oh, this was an interesting one. I found this Oriental Head and Shoulders in a fashion magazine. And remember, I was saying I was working with exploring Islamic writing. Well, this is an Islamic writing. I'll say that's a stencil from PM Artist Studio. Well, I do believe it comes in stamp form now. And I want to say this is one of my stencils called Grandfather's Letters, I believe it is. And what I was playing with, the arrows represent things are lost in translation, like Chinese whispers, and how if I look at Chinese or Japanese or another language with another alphabet, to me it just looks like a pattern. Whereas if there's someone from another country who looks at mine, it would also just look like a pattern and not words. So, and I was beginning to like orange and purple at this point. This was just another page that I didn't think needed anything else. This was a paper tablecloth that I found at my local grocery store. It was in the sale bin, so I took it. Well, not took it, I paid for it, obviously. I think these were bits of napkin that I had left over from doing the Queen's page. And then these are butterflies that I made on... I'm making on wet strength tissue. Maybe it's wet strength tissue. So I made them, and there's a video on making those as well. So again, I didn't feel it needed anything else. I've learned that it's okay to leave places, whereas me a few years before this would have filled in this with everything. I would have stamped text, I put a figure in, I would have done branches, and it would have been too much. But that on itself is beautiful. Oh, now this goes back some now. Oh gosh, many years ago. Let's see, it must have been late 80s. So that must have been about, I would say probably about 1988. I was just coming out of dance college. And my first contract, I got a three-month contract working in Tokyo, Japan. And these two, they were actually greetings cards, and I cut them down just to make panels, and I wanted to take the influence of these to make that sort of feel. So again, you can see my ode to Islamic writing here. This was supposed to be bamboo, and these two postcards had sat in my journal, just in their envelopes, just tucked into my journal, all the way from probably 1989-ish, all the way to, well, 2022 onwards, and never been used. It's one of those things that I loved them, never did anything with them, so I pulled them out one day and went, you know what, I'm just going to use them. And I did, and I like that. I'm surprised I did this orange and not red looking at those now, but maybe I was having a moment. Oh, we're at the end. So this was just a complete celebration of, I don't know, I just went to town. I want to say this is lots of different pieces of tissue collaged on. At the time I was watching Frawl Davies, who's a New Zealand artist, and she was doing lots of things with circles. And I want to say this is a mask by Pierre Martyr Studio. It's the actual mask made out of Yupo. I think they call them dinged up donuts. This was a feather that I painted with white acrylic paint, so it's solid. These, I think, are Tim Holtz leaves. Again, something out of a magazine. And I just went to town, basically. So there you go. That's my first. So I have to keep cracking it because every time I use it, it sort of opens up on me. So as promised, guys, there you go. Bit of a bonus video for you. Just sharing with you my first finished art journal. Well, yeah, I've got other art journals, but I wouldn't say any are absolutely finished. But this is the first of many. And as we get along, I will show you the others, I promise you. So thanks for your patience, guys. I'm Ceri the Crafter. That's Ceri the Crafter. Until next time, goodbye now.